Hey, this is Zulem Urbina, and tune into the relay for the latest news in boxing all around the world. Thank you for supporting myself and other female boxers. We truly appreciate it.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, this past weekend, Alicia Baumgardner advanced to a professional record of 10 wins with 1 loss.
The prediction stuck.
I anticipated that Alicia Baumgardner's big ring return would go the distance. That's 8 rounds in the bank for the Ohio-born, Michigan-based fighter. 8 rounds in the bank after roughly 19-20 months of inactivity for Alicia Baumgardner, who before this past weekend's fight had not fought since December of 2019. It's actually quite beneficial to her that she didn't get the knockout, that the fight didn't end early. It's actually quite beneficial to Alicia moving forward that the fight went the distance, the full 8 rounds, because she needed those rounds after that duration of time. Chicagoan welterweight Summer-Lynn was also in action this past weekend against Brenda Gonzalez. I did pick Summer-Lynn to win this fight with Brenda by way of knockout. The fight went the distance, went the full 10 rounds, and the silver lining there for Summer-Lynn is that in spite of not getting a highlight reel knockout, the fight went 10 rounds. This was the first time that Summer-Lynn went 10 rounds in her professional boxing career, and that is much needed experience for the Chicago-based welterweight, who this weekend advanced to a professional record of 6 wins with no losses and 3 knockouts. You know, Rick Ramos really is doing a great job developing this fighter, grooming her to someday become an elite level athlete, getting her fights on a regular basis in spite of the circumstances. The silver lining here is that Summer-Lynn went 10 rounds for the first time in her professional career, and that is valuable experience.
Congratulations to her.
Yet another young fighter who made their bones this weekend in this very early stage of their career, Nico Ali-Walsh, the grandson of the late, great Muhammad Ali. I'm sure you've heard of him. I'm sure you're all aware. He debuted as a professional this weekend, scoring a first-round knockout. The very pedestrian Jordan Weeks in the super middleweight division. And I don't have very many annotations or anecdotes in reference to the performance. It was all really a blur. And the most that I derived from it is that young Nico is very eager to make an impression, very enthusiastic about his career and where it's going to go. Obviously, his namesake is going to be a part of the marketing. I mean, he's an Ali, for Christ's sake.
How could it not be?
Managers and promoters, the powers that be, would be fools not to use that marketing angle. My thoughts on young Nico Ali is that this kid, he deserves a fair shake.
There's no need to be negative.
Or unrealistic in the pursuit of being negative. Just because he's an Ali doesn't mean he's going to have a career like Muhammad Ali. And that's okay because most fighters
ain't got a career like Muhammad Ali.
So that really shouldn't even be held against him.
Give the kid a break, all right?
Every time a great boxer's offspring decides to lace the gloves up, there are all these expectations, and by now I think we've seen enough examples and enough instances that these expectations, they're undue.
They come from a lot of people that are just in a hurry to say something negative.
See, what I'm getting at is, by now we know that in the sport of boxing, sometimes the apple does fall far from the tree. We see that with Marvis Frazier and his famous father, Joe Frazier. We see that with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. We see that the namesake alone is not enough to make the boxer a great boxer.
It's common sense at this point.
So I think it goes without saying that I myself am not expecting young Nico to achieve everything that his very famous grandfather achieved, because most boxers aren't going to achieve what Muhammad Ali achieved, have the impact that he had inside and outside of the ring. And because most boxers aren't going to achieve what Muhammad Ali achieved, why would I hold that against Nico? See, I think the kid deserves a chance, and in truth, I don't know what his career is going to be like. I don't know how far he's going to go.
It's like every time Campbell Hatton fights.
The son of Ricky Hatton. You know, every time Campbell gets out there, you got no shortage of guys reminding you that he's not his father. And they don't really believe he's going to go all that far. And you know what? Maybe those people are right. I don't know. I'm not a fucking fortune teller. You know, he really hasn't been a professional boxer all that long. And neither has Nico. So I'm just going to let their careers play out before my eyes without the negative quips and undue expectations that many people associate with the offspring of famous boxers. I'm just going to look at Nico, the fighter, and never mind his namesake. The same applies to Conor Ben, and the same applies to Campbell Hatton, Tim Tszyu.
Now cut him some slack and give him a chance to show me something.
And it's because I'm not expecting Nico Ali-Walsh to be the second coming of Muhammad Ali. The same way I'm not expecting young Tim Tszyu to be the second coming of Kostya Tszyu. Maybe he'll achieve the same success that his father did. Maybe he'll exceed it. Who really knows? Time will tell. But at least let time tell the story.
Because odds are there's never going to be a second coming of Muhammad Ali.
That was always the case. I won't judge Nico Ali-Walsh harshly due to his namesake.
Not expecting him to be Muhammad Ali.
I say go easy on the kid, because it's easy to end up in your forebear's shadow when you're an Ali, and let him develop.
Whatever he ends up developing into.
Because it's too soon to tell anyway. The guy's only had one pro fight. Other news, we talked about this in passing here on the channel. Trilla's Ryan Kavanaugh tells ESPN he's now planning to hold the Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos Jr. lightweight title fight in the Middle East in October. Trilla co-founder Ryan Kavanaugh told ESPN on Saturday that he is planning to stage the rescheduled undisputed lightweight championship fight in October in the Middle East. We're currently working with the regulatory bodies to bring this fight to Saudi Arabia or the UAE in October. Kavanaugh said, "We think it's the perfect place for such a landmark fight." The New Jersey-based sanctioning body also gave Trilla until October 17th to hold the fight. Contracts are due by August 24th, later on this month. Can't wait to see the details. Lopez's manager, David McWater, told ESPN when informed of Trilla's Middle East plan, "We were always willing to go anywhere we didn't have to quarantine. In the event Trilla fails to submit contracts by August 24th, the rights to the fight will revert to the next highest bidder at February's auction. That would be Eddie Hearn's Matchroom, which bid $3.5 million. Lopez's promoter, Top Rank, came in third at $2.3 million. Triller won the rights for a bid of $6 million. That's
Too much.
almost double what Matchroom bid for the fight. The 28-year-old Australian became the IBF's #1 contender with a split decision win over Lee Selby in October. Earlier that month, Lopez added 3 more titles to his collection with his win over Lomachenko. He won his first title with a second-round knockout of Richard Comey in December 2019. Now, Lopez appears to be inching closer to the first defense of his undisputed lightweight crown. And it only took about fucking 12 months.
If this fight does happen in October.
My feelings really haven't changed. This fight seems to be more trouble than it's worth for Trilla, and now they're looking to take it to the Middle East. Why, you ask? Well, they're likely looking for investors over there. Someone who's willing to foot the bill. Maybe get a big site fee for this thing. And I don't know how big a site fee they can get for a very ordinary fight like this with 2 guys that don't necessarily have a very big fan base. I mean, this ain't Anthony Joshua we're talking about.
I mean, maybe they could get the scratch.
These guys over there in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they've got long money, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're willing to throw it away on a fight like this, so I'm not sure how much success Triller is or isn't going to have taking the fight over there to the UAE.
Just know that's likely what their intentions are.
I mean, why else would Ryan Kavanaugh pick such drastically different locations for the match? Originally, you wanted to do it here in America, in Miami. When that didn't work out, you wanted to take it all the way down there to the land down under, Australia. And now what you're talking about is taking it to the Middle East.
Hoping one of those sheiks picks it up.
Pretty obvious what Ryan Kavanaugh and the people over there at Triller are shooting for. This fight has turned out to be quite the financial burden for them, because you know what? If they felt that the fight was going to do good business here in the States, they'd still be looking to do the fight here in the States.
Not trying to take it all the way over there for no reason.
And I don't know that this is going to work out for them, because they're working on the clock. They've got a deadline. They've got until the 24th to iron out the contracts for this fight. That's roughly a week. They've got a week. They've got till next Tuesday to find somebody over there in either Saudi Arabia or the UAE that wants to do this thing.
They got a default.
And then the people over there at Matchroom who placed the second highest bid for the fight, they have to decide if they want to pick this up or not. If they don't, it goes to Top Rank.
And that will have made all of this a massive waste of time.
If that's the way all of this happens, if that's the way the cookie crumbles, if Triller ends up defaulting on the fight and Matchroom subsequently passes on it as well, if the fight goes back to Top Rank, there's no other way to characterize all of this aside from a gigantic waste of time.
For all of this, you should have just let them do it anyway.
You should have let them do it from the very beginning, because at minimum, it would have been over and done with by now, and you would have been ready to move on to something bigger, something better, before this year is out. As it stands, if this fight ends up happening in October...
Costed you a year.
Been saying it the whole time. Triller's winning bid of $6 million was a gross overpayment that's well over the market value of this fight, so much so that the people at Triller, they're not even sure this fight does good business in America, so they've got to take it to the Middle East.
I think Teofimo made a mountain out of a molehill.
He should not have expected a mega-sized price for what's not a mega-sized fight. I think it's costed him a lot of time. It could end up costing Triller a lot of money. If they default on this thing, they're out their deposit, and I believe that's something like $1 million, maybe a little over. And trying to make a statement, trying to make a splash, Triller grossly overpaid for this fight. And now, they have a little over a week's time to find a way to get it done, or they're out $1 million.
And I don't know if they can do it.
Boxing news is fluid and ever-changing. In a week's time, they might decide to scrap that Middle East idea and decide to do it here somewhere, take their chances.
Or they might decide to default.
They might decide that losing that deposit, whatever it is, might actually be a lot cheaper. The cheaper alternative than actually trying to put this thing on, because if you try to put this thing on, you'll end up losing more than that.
All this trouble for this basic fucking fight.
I don't know how long Triller's gonna stay in the sport of boxing, I really don't. You know, Jake Paul, he went to Showtime. Mike Tyson, he had a rift with them over his payment for the Roy Jones Jr. exhibition match. They got that thing with Oscar coming up, but who's really interested in that? I'm not sure. I don't know. It seems like, unless it's a low-level fight, like a Michael Hunter versus a Mike Wilson, Triller struggles to get deals done.
Unless it's a Pro Gray versus Red Cap.
Unless it's that kind of situation, that kind of fight, it seems like they experience a lot of bumps in the road. Some rumors, some rumblings that Golden Boy Promotions might be leaving the zone. They might be parting ways, and Golden Boy might look to find a home on Triller. But looking at how this Lopez versus Kambosos situation has played out, you tell me if they're adequately suited to house an entire stable of fighters, an entire promotional outfit.
It doesn't look like it.
It's a fluid situation where nothing would surprise me. But the moral of the story, and what resonates with me the most, is that a fight like Lopez versus Kambosos isn't supposed to take this much trouble to make. I mean, it really isn't. It's not a big fight. It's not a major event. Even the hardcore boxing fans that follow the sport closely, this is the kind of fight that you're supposed to get done with relative ease. And look at how much time, how much effort has gone into just this little fight.
More trouble than it's worth, don't you think?
And finally, a story that's getting a lot of attention that in some ways is related to the story we just talked about. Charles Conwell says he faked a hand injury to withdraw from April 8th fight versus Ivan Galoob on manager's advice. Conwell said McWhorter, that's David McWhorter, who handles the career of Teofimo Lopez, signed him out of the Olympics, told him to fake the injury so that he could fight on the undercard for Triller in a June 19th event in Miami featuring Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos. That fight would have paid Conwell 80 G's against an easier opponent, Mark DeLuca, while the Galoob bout would have paid 40,000. We said hand because that's the hardest to prove, Conwell said. I didn't really think twice about it. I just said all right. McWhorter, who manages Lopez, Steen, and Galoob, said there was no reason for them to lie because they didn't have a signed contract for the April fight. We could have pulled out for any reason, McWhorter said. I asked if I can fight on both cards so I can get both of the money, said Conwell, who trains in Detroit. He says, too close to it and don't want to risk injury, so we're just going to do the one fight. I was just following advice from my manager. The Lopez versus Kambosos title fight moved from June 5th to June 19th. Days before the event, it was postponed altogether when Lopez tested positive for COVID. That meant Conwell missed out on a potential payday of 120 G's from both fights. I have bills. I have a daughter, Conwell said. No, it is not getting paid. It's some strain. I haven't fought in no meaningful fights. With the Triller event postponed, Conwell stayed busy with a June 26th decision win over Silverio Ortiz in Ashland, Kentucky. He earned 8 G's for the untelevised fight held at a community college. His previous fight was in December, a 9th-round stoppage of the previously undefeated Matyar Eshkiev, a career-best performance in his greatest exposure to date. I'm getting the sense that Charles Conwell feels jilted for following David McWater's advice, that, he was supposed to make an appearance on a Ring City card. David tells him to pull out because he can get a bigger purse on Triller, and then the Triller fight doesn't happen. The Triller card gets postponed, the one we just talked about, Lopez versus Kambosos. He would have got 40 G's from the Ring City card and 2 times that much for the Triller card. Had the Triller card actually happened the way it worked out, Charles missed out on both of those paydays, and I have no doubts that's why he's coming forward with this information. I mean, it doesn't make him look good, but it makes David McWater look even worse, because David McWater also handles the career of Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo, who allegedly contracted COVID. A lot of people didn't believe that news when that news broke.
A lot of people thought he was faking it.
At that time, what a lot of people were thinking is that it's the people over there at Triller that are making the decision to move the fight date because they see there's no buzz around the fight and the tickets ain't moving.
More information has become available.
We now see that situation caused a rift between Ryan Kavanaugh, Triller, and Teofimo Lopez. They are citing neglect on Teofimo Lopez's part for having contracted the COVID-19 virus. So, there's something there to reconcile, but essentially, the implication here is that the same guy that manages Charles Conwell is the same guy that manages Teofimo Lopez. And that guy, David McWater, he instructed Charles, at least according to Charles, to fake an injury. So who's to say that he didn't also instruct Teofimo Lopez to fake a COVID test?
So why he would have done that is beyond me.
See, with Charles, it's a lot more simple and a lot more straightforward. He instructed Charles to fake that injury because he could get a bigger purse on Triller. And if Charles gets a bigger purse, David gets a bigger cut.
It's easy to understand.
But with Teofimo Lopez, it's a bit different, because what you have to reconcile is, what does David McWater get out of telling Teofimo to say he's got COVID?
You had Charles pull out a 1 card to participate on this one.
Only so you could instruct Teofimo Lopez to postpone it? Why? What is there to gain?
Seems like you pissed off Ryan Kavanaugh and Triller doing that.
That strained the relationship between them. And people over there at Triller, they wanted to ship you off to Australia to do the fight down there. That's how all of that came about. That's how all of that happened. So the question becomes, what did David McWater gain, or what would he have gained from instructing Teofimo Lopez to fake that COVID test, if that's what you want to believe?
If you believed that he faked it.
If that's what you want to believe, what you then have to reconcile is, what would David McWater have to gain out of instructing Teofimo Lopez to fake a COVID test?
How does that benefit him?
How would that have benefited them? The most that I can think of, the most that I can come up with is, I don't know, maybe Teofimo needed more time to make the weight. And I'm shooting in the dark here. I'm just guessing. I'm just bouncing ideas around.
But that is what you have to reconcile.
If you believe that Charles was instructed by David to pull out of the Ring City card so he could fight on Triller, you then have to reconcile, why would that same David McWater cause Teofimo to postpone that card?
Once again, it's more trouble than it's worth.
This Lopez, Kambosos, Triller, Conwell, McWater fiasco.
The whole thing's more trouble than it's worth.
Brings me back to what I said before. Would have been a lot more simple had Top Rank done the fight.